When you think about someone getting famous overnight, your mind probably jumps straight to that classic Hollywood myth.
Oh, yeah. The whole discovered at a diner trope.
Exactly. The young, hopeful girl is just sitting there sipping a milkshake at a soda fountain. A big shot talent scout walks in, hands her a business card, and her entire life just flips upside down.
It's an incredibly binary concept. One minute you're a complete nobody, and the very next, your face is everywhere.
Right. And it feels like a fairy tale, like massive success is just this winning lottery ticket you stumble across on the sidewalk.
Yeah, rather than the result of any calculated effort, we hold on to that narrative because it's romantic.
But the reality of building a career, especially in the digital age, makes that soda fountain myth look, well, incredibly simplistic.
Completely. If you pull back the curtain on how someone goes from a local face to an international brand, it is rarely just a lucky break.
Which brings us to today. Welcome to today's Dip Dive. We're looking at a huge stack of biographical profiles, filmographies, and encyclopedia entries, including her Czech Wikipedia page, to trace the career of Czech model and actress Aneta Šmrhová.
Better known to most of you by her primary professional alias, Anetta Keys.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. Because reading through these sources spanning over 20 years, this isn't just a biography.
No, not at all.
It's basically a masterclass in how a media personality builds a brand from scratch, pivots through some very scrutinized areas of media, and essentially rides the wave of a constantly shifting internet landscape.
What's fascinating here is the adaptability. Tracing her journey from the Wild West days of early internet modeling all the way to modern creator platforms is just, it's a perfect case study in professional evolution.
Absolutely. So to understand the sheer scale of the global brand that Anetta Keys became, we really have to rewind the clock.
Back to the foundation.
Right. The sources document this incredibly humble, almost accidental way her career began. So she's born on November 18th, 1983. But looking through the data we have today, there's immediately this bizarre geographical discrepancy about where she's actually from.
Yeah, the historical record is really split on her origins. Her Czech Wikipedia page confidently lists her birthplace as Prague.
The capital city.
Exactly. But if you cross-reference that with multiple other profiles in our stack, they pinpoint a drastically different location. The small town of Šivaklát in western Bohemia.
Which was part of Czechoslovakia at the time. I mean, that is an enormous contrast. Prague is this massive cosmopolitan hub. And Šivaklát is, it's a tiny municipality basically known for having a medieval castle.
Right.
Why would the digital record be so divided on something as basic as where she was born?
You see this frequently in early digital media profiles, actually.
Yep.
A talent agency or a publicist will list a major internationally recognized city just to make a performer seem more cosmopolitan.
Oh, to give global audiences an easy reference point.
Precisely. Over time, that strategic simplification gets codified into platforms like Wikipedia. Meanwhile, the niche biographical databases tend to hold on to the granular, factual details, like the small town.
That makes total sense. But setting the geography aside, her actual day-to-day life before the internet was remarkably grounded.
Very normal.
She was essentially living a standard teenage life. The sources note she was working at a snack counter and studying to become a secretary.
So there was absolutely no grand, calculated master plan to dominate global media.
None at all. The initial spark didn't even come from her. It was her boyfriend at the time who encouraged her to try contacting a modeling agency.
And that suggestion brings us to the year 2001. She is around 17 or 18 years old, and she gets her modern version of that soda fountain discovery.
Except she wasn't at a diner. The sources tell us she was out rollerblading.
Just rollerblading.
Right. Someone literally spots her rollerblading, and that random encounter leads directly to her start in internet modeling. I mean, I struggle to wrap my head around this.
It sounds crazy now.
It does. How does someone go from rollerblading in a European town to an international internet modeling career almost overnight? Was the industry really just plucking people off the street like that?
Well, to understand how that happens, you have to look at the mechanics of the internet in 2001. We were right in the middle of a massive technological shift.
The broadband boom.
Exactly. Broadband was aggressively replacing dial-up. Digital cameras were suddenly affordable and producing high-quality images. Suddenly, the internet could host heavy, media-like large photo galleries and video clips.
But the creator economy didn't exist yet.
Right. So agencies and early digital publishers were desperately scrambling for fresh faces. They had to feed an exploding, insatiable global demand for online content.
So the technological gates were blown wide open, but the traditional talent pipeline just hadn't caught up.
That is the core mechanism at play. Prior to 2001, if you wanted to be a model, you had to navigate print magazines or physical film studios. There were massive gatekeepers.
Huge financial barriers.
Totally. But the early broadband era meant a girl spotted rollerblading could be photographed, and those images could be viewed by millions globally within hours. Her rapid transition perfectly reflects the internet's power to instantly globalize local talent.
It's wild. But getting through that newly opened door is one thing. Establishing a permanent residence inside the industry is an entirely different beast.
Without a doubt.
After that initial foray into internet modeling, the sources indicate she quickly transitioned into a much more mature area of media around 2001 or 2002. She was just 18 or 19.
And the mature entertainment industry is notoriously saturated.
Intensely competitive and obviously very controversial. Surviving in that space seems like it requires a completely different skill set than just being discovered on rollerblades.
It requires an aggressive pivot. You have to stop relying on a lucky break and start engineering deliberate brand differentiation. In a space that crowded, just showing up isn't enough.
You have to stand out.
Exactly. A performer has to become instantly recognizable in a sea of thousands of competing thumbnails.
Well, I want to read out the physical specifications the sources provide because she definitely established a highly specific visual identity. She's listed at 165 centimeters tall, so about 5'5". Brunette, though she sometimes incorporated blonde highlights, with hazel eyes.
Right.
But the markers that seemed to truly set her apart were her body art. She had distinctive piercings in her nose, her navel, and her tongue. The profiles also highlight a very notable fishhook tattoo on her lower back.
And the Czech sources specifically note an eventual fullback tattoo as well.
Right, showing her visual branding evolved over time.
And those modifications are not just aesthetic choices. Functionally, they operate as a visual logo.
A logo.
Yeah. When a potential viewer is scrolling rapidly through an overwhelming directory of digital content, those specific visual anchors, the hazel eyes, combined with the specific piercings and that distinct tattoo cut through the noise.
It builds immediate brand recall.
It immediately communicates, this is the specific performer you're looking for.
Okay, let me challenge this idea of genius branding for a second, though. Looking at the mature entertainment industry from the outside, isn't it fundamentally just a volume game based on conventional attractiveness?
That's what people assume, yeah.
Right. So does having a few piercings and a tattoo really elevate someone to the level of a strategic masterclass? Or is it just the bare minimum to get past?
That is the most common misconception about the field. Physical attractiveness is just the prerequisite to get an audition. It is the absolute baseline.
So it doesn't guarantee success.
It does not generate a decade-long career. What generates longevity and pricing power is identifying a highly specific niche and dominating it so thoroughly that you become synonymous with it.
And when we look at her professional choices documented in the sources, they really are highly calculated.
Very. First, she utilized multiple aliases, names like Cindy Sweet, Katrin, Anita Braun, in addition to Anetta Keys.
Which lets her test different regional markets.
Exactly. Or fulfill varied studio contracts without diluting her primary brand name. But more critically, she laser-focused her performance niche. The sources clearly document she primarily engaged in solo performances and scenes featuring exclusively female performers.
The sources back that up with a very specific list of recurring co-stars, too. She frequently collaborated with other prominent European models of that era.
Right, like Sandra Shine.
Yeah, Sandra Shine, Sanat Egerhazy, Eve Angel, Sophie Mooney, and Lenka Gabarova. I mean, it reads like she intentionally built a recurring ensemble cast.
Which is a brilliant mechanism for audience growth. Long before social media algorithms existed to suggest related content, she was effectively hacking audience discovery through association.
Oh, cross-pollinating audiences.
Precisely. By collaborating frequently with a specific top-tier cohort of European performers, she cross-pollinated her audience with theirs. If a consumer purchased a video for Eve Angel, they were introduced to Anetta Keys.
That is incredibly smart.
Furthermore, by strictly focusing on female-only collaborations and solo work, she carved out a dedicated submarket. She didn't try to appeal to the entire market. She positioned herself as the premier option for a specific demographic.
Well, the strategy clearly paid off.
Yeah.
The milestones she achieved are the absolute definition of industry heavyweight status. She secured collaborations with high-profile digital publishers like 21 Sextory, Pierre Woodman, Twisties, and Private.
Huge names at the time.
Massive. But she didn't just stay digital. She successfully crossed over into major print recognition, which obviously carried massive cultural weight in the early 2000s.
Oh, print was everything back then.
The sources show she was named Penthouse's Pet of the Month in December 2003 and followed that up immediately by becoming Playboy CZ's Playmate in January 2004. That is an incredible 1-2 punch.
Securing those specific titles acts as the ultimate brand validation. It completely shifts a performer's perceived value. You are no longer just a face in a digital gallery.
You're a recognized cover star.
Right. It elevates name recognition, dramatically increases pricing power for future contracts, and gives the performer a level of mainstream clout that makes them much harder for the industry to replace.
It changes the entire power dynamic.
Totally.
If you're enjoying the vibe, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends. It really helps us out.
It really does.
So if you build a brand that strong, it doesn't just stay confined to one corner of the internet. With that level of recognition, mainstream media inevitably tries to co-opt that visual logo. Let's look at how her career breached the mainstream and how shifting technology eventually forced a massive professional pivot.
The mid-2000s were such an interesting era because the boundaries between mature entertainment and mainstream pop culture were becoming highly permeable.
Hollywood started paying attention.
Exactly. Hollywood productions recognized the value of tapping into performers who already had massive online followings.
And we see that play out with a couple of very recognizable pop culture moments in the sources. She lands an uncredited but highly visible role in the 2004 mainstream comedy film EuroTrip.
Specifically in the infamous Club Vandersex scene.
Right. And then a few years later, she appears on the cover of the 2007 direct-to-video movie National Lampoon's Spring Break. She was essentially operating as a cultural touchstone representing a specific era of European nightlife.
Those crossover appearances just demonstrate the sheer reach of the brand she built. However, while she was hitting these mainstream markers, the sources also indicate the beginnings of her transition away from the mature entertainment industry.
Yeah.
And what is truly fascinating about analyzing the historical record here is how incredibly fuzzy the timeline of her retirement actually is.
Fuzzy is putting it mildly. It is a complete chronological mess.
It really is.
The Czech Wikipedia page definitively cites her retirement as 2008. But another source in the stack specifies that her final production for the notable director Pierre Woodman was a film called The Perfectionist, released in 2007. Then, multiple other biographical profiles confidently state she retired in 2010. And just to completely throw off the timeline, she is actively credited in compilation releases from studios like Climax Films and MVG Productions as late as 2014 and 2015.
Wow.
I mean, how do you explain a 7-year margin of error for a retirement date?
This discrepancy highlights a fundamental mechanic of digital media distribution, specifically within films for mature audiences. When a performer retires, it usually just means they stop stepping in front of a camera to film new material.
But the studios still have the old footage.
Exactly. The studios they work for hold the perpetual rights to hundreds of hours of previously recorded material.
The outtakes and alternative angles.
Right. They take scenes shot a decade earlier, re-edit them, package them into new compilation releases, and put them on the market with a fresh copyright date. The internet creates a perpetual present.
So she was long gone, but the content wasn't.
Her active shooting career almost certainly concluded somewhere in that 2007 to 2010 window. But the digital footprint she left behind was so vast that studios continued to monetize her image, generating new releases long after she had personally exited the industry.
That sounds incredibly frustrating for someone trying to move on with their life. Transitioning out of that specific industry is notoriously difficult because performers get severely pigeonholed.
I really do.
But the sources show she didn't just disappear. Starting around 2012, she shifted her professional focus entirely to glamour, nude, and artistic modeling. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Let's hear it.
She fully embraced the modern creator economy. She established a robust presence on direct-to-fan platforms like OnlyFans, Patreon, and Instagram. How did being a pioneer of the early 2001 internet uniquely position her to capitalize on these Web 2.0 platforms a decade later?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you look at the mechanics of her entire career, and she has consistently surfed major technological shifts. In 2001, she learned how to build and engage an audience through a screen during the broadband boom.
Right.
By the time platforms like Patreon and OnlyFans emerged, she already possessed over a decade of hands-on experience in cultivating, retaining, and monetizing a loyal digital fan base. She already knew the operational playbook that new creators were just starting to figure out.
She had the audience-building algorithms figured out before the platforms even built them.
Precisely. But the critical revelation here is the underlying economic model. During her early career, publishers and studios acted as massive gatekeepers.
They owned everything.
They controlled the distribution channels, owned the footage, and took the vast majority of the profits. The advent of direct-to-fan platforms provided the tools to completely disintermediate those legacy studios.
She cut out the middleman.
By moving to Patreon and OnlyFans, she reclaimed total ownership of her image, her specific branding, and her revenue streams. She transitioned from being contracted talent to being the CEO of her own media ecosystem.
I love that. If you've ever subscribed to a creator on Patreon or supported someone directly on a modern platform, you're participating in an economic model that was essentially beta tested by performers like her years earlier.
Exactly.
But looking past the business mechanics, the studios, and the platforms, the sources also offer a few glimpses into Aneta Šmrhová, the individual behind the massive digital footprint.
And those details are crucial. They serve to ground the narrative. They remind the audience that there is a multidimensional human being operating beneath the heavily optimized imagery.
The personal details the sources provide are almost jarringly normal compared to her career trajectory. In her spare time, she enjoys watching movies, and she maintains a regular routine at the gym.
Very relatable.
Right. But the detail that truly stands out across multiple sources is her personal advocacy. She's consistently described as a massive animal lover who actively dedicates time to fighting for animal rights.
This raises an important question regarding how much of a public persona is carefully curated versus authentic. Finding that detail in the source material highlights a significant evolution in how public figures operate in the digital age.
How so?
Under the legacy studio model of the early 2000s, there was virtually no space for a performer's authentic personal passions. The studio sold a specific fantasy, and the performer was required to embody that character completely.
You are a two-dimensional product.
Yes, the infrastructure for sharing anything else simply didn't exist. But modern creator platforms like an Instagram feed or a Patreon page empower creators to blend their curated persona with their authentic reality.
They can do both.
They can deliver the highly produced glamour content that built their brand while simultaneously sharing their mundane gym routines or leveraging their platform for genuine animal rights advocacy. It introduces a layer of human complexity that early internet distribution actively suppressed.
It is a striking contrast. On one side, you have a globally recognized, highly strategic media brand, and on the other, you have an everyday movie fan advocating for animals.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean when we put the pieces together? Looking at the full scope of our sources today, Aneta Šmrhová's career is ultimately a study in radical, continuous adaptation.
100%.
We traced her journey from studying secretarial work and running a snack counter to catching the early broadband wave through a chance rollerblading encounter. We explored how she strategically dominated a saturated niche through visual branding and audience cross-pollination.
And navigated that super messy timeline of digital rights.
Right. And ultimately leveraged new technologies to reclaim her independence from studio gatekeepers. Her professional life is defined by an incredible ability to read the digital landscape and pivot accordingly.
That is the defining takeaway for anyone analyzing this history. Regardless of what specific field you work in, the mechanics of her success are universal.
The adaptability.
Recognizing shifts in technology, understanding exactly how to differentiate your personal brand within a crowded niche, and having the strategic foresight to pivot when the economic models change. These are the skills that guarantee longevity. She didn't merely survive the turbulence of the internet's evolution, she actively weaponized it to her advantage.
It forces you to rethink what career longevity actually requires in a digital space. As we wrap up today's deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought to explore on your own.
When you look at the massive multi-billion-dollar influencer and creator economy we have today, consider who actually laid the architectural blueprint.
What?
The early pioneers of internet modeling, who were navigating an intensely stigmatized and controversial field in the early 2000s, were the first to decipher online personal branding. They were the first to successfully monetize direct digital fan bases, and the first to prove the financial power of dominating a hyper-specific digital niche.
And they were at the playbook.
In many ways, they built the foundational mechanics that every single modern influencer relies on today.
It certainly makes you look at your modern social media feed through a completely different lens, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the mechanics of personal branding and digital evolution. Keep exploring the sources, keep questioning the media structures around you, and remember, the next time you see someone become an overnight sensation, ask yourself if they really just got lucky at the soda fountain.
Or if they've been strategically rollerblading toward that exact moment their entire life.
We'll catch you on the next one.